Because of some conversations that I've had with others online, Facebook, YouTube channels, and stuff like that, I'm prompted, cued, like in cue sites, to share some things about what I've experienced by virtue of who I am, being pure, eternal, absolute love energy that is on fire to learn, which is synonymous with fire to create. Worlds born out of eternal, absolute, pure love in spirit form, which is the form and flow of hydraulic pressure. So I wrote this down. The L's. Go pull up a photo of an old Messerschmitt ME-109 and look at the label, the holographic label. That's called a signet, an identifier. They're identifying the plane. They're identifying who they are. See, the old Messerschmitt, right, is a death cult. But the sign that they put up there is the L's. The upper on the left, the upper on the right, the lower left, and the lower right. The hemispheres and the quads. The tetrahedron, which is the base. So those that work in fire suppression know exactly what the importance of a base platform is. Cool the base. Water. Water pressure. Spirit in the water. Static pressure and residual flow. Let it all flow. We used to share that as children. And so one of the things I love about RK's Secret of Truth, Randy Keith, is when he shares about being an individuated unit, okay? Which means we're part of the collective because there isn't any separation between what I am and what you are that I'm giving love to. And so therefore, when I am what love is, then everything that is in my mirror is experiencing what I am, which is what love is. So that means I'm healing me, right, by virtue of what I experience through you, because you're not experiencing what I am, which what love is, because we can detect it with our sensors when you're fully activated, which is full sensory, cosmic level spirit antennas. Antennas that are getting the transmissions. And that has everything to do with states of awareness. So when I was growing up as a child, because there were so many using the words on how we describe by virtue of the language that we're using to describe what we experience and how we communicate with each other as units of energy consciousness. The word that I'm referring to here was like debates and arguments. And those words are appropriate or applicable as the application of conscious-driven holograms, holographic codes. Okay, so you know that an eternal life system, the codes, the hologram, the breathing pure, eternal, absolute, pure love, is a different hologram, which means the codes fire differently than something that is a death science spiral template technology. And so that's basic logic. So it means the codes are not compatible. That means that one communication system is not compatible with another communication system. That means that the DNA, which means the antenna, which is the codes, which is the frequency of communication, are not compatible with each other. That means they're not able to translate one from another. Now we're back to knowing one from the other, one that is dead and one that is living. A living system and a Death Star system, which is the universe killer mathematics. So when I was a child growing up, I used to say, for example, when people thought that they knew who I was, I'd say, you don't really know who I am. And native Indians, spirits, the native indigenous tribes certainly know this, walking in your moccasins. Until you've lived in my skin. The skin is the largest structural component of the DNA. Because cells love to breathe as one, which is unison, the first sun, the first sign of life. The first spirit, the first spiral. So in other words, you can't possibly really know me because you're not me. You're another individual unit of consciousness. Now we're into units like in UIE, IT, like a T wave, a transharmonic wave, a scalar wave. Now we're back to log scales. Now we're back to water table matrices, log scale vectors, the exponent, the acceleration of the accretion levels to experience an integrated circuit, being fully integrated, experience being one, equal unto all the other cells, so that all the other cells that are equal in distance from the center point of that base, which is the base 12 platform, are all experiencing being on fire. So boy, we need a coolant. And what is the best coolant? Water. Hydrogen. Right? Water. Because those that chase the spirit of fire know when you run a fog pattern, the burn patterns of sound and light, remember, just like how we were able to save that house that day at 4:30 in the afternoon, right? I had an 1.5-inch line, right, hooked up to a gated Y. It was hooked up to an 1.5-inch standpipe, so there was a steady flow under pressure, which is called residual pressure, that was flowing through the gated Y. Now we got two lines. A line that was going around the right-hand side of the house, another line that's going around the left side of the house. Now we have a forked tongue like a snake. The two becomes one, the one becomes all. So that means there is equal flow coming out of my nozzle at 50 pounds per square inch, and there's 50 pounds coming out of the other nozzle on the left-hand side of the house, and that's called a perimeter. So the base 12 mass function here is to cool the base and do what's called steam conversion, which is torque speed conversion of how fire and water love to be in perfect balance to cool the base communication platform. So the nozzle that I had on, because I was on the right side, with a fire that was burning really fast with about 30, 40 mile an hour Santa Ana winds. So you know what a wet bulb and a dry bulb is, right? Wet wear, dry bulb, wet bulb, fuel moisture, the tetrahedron, the tetrahedron, the four-way intersection, the four L's. Equal flow, equidistance. So the center point of that platform is equidistance, so that all cells are being equally loved. UnEye, unison, the first sign, the first signet, the first spirit, the first code, the Nomi Noble Planet code, the core CPU. And so that's why when it's like people will say things about you based on what is posted as hypertext in a hologram, it's like, if you really want to get to know me, then you would have to have experienced everything that I experienced from the time I came out of my biological mother's womb, just in that time wave spiral, which is like a flash in the pan. Because the speed at which we move, the spiral, because so much is happening simultaneously. That's why my sequences, which is the mathematical firing sequences of the codes, was etched in the Rosetta Stone, the pink Rosetta Stone of Sophia, to experience perfect balance. Perfect balance. To zero out the clocks, so we experience 0 degrees of separation from the first spiral. So there is no time. So I experience pure, eternal, absolute love. So that's what I share with you. So that's what allows us to transmute anything that's less than what I am. The I am. This now I am. I am. This now I am. Now time. The completion of a circuit. Now I'm experiencing no time. I'm experiencing pure, eternal, absolute love. Creation energy. What do you want to create? So it was beautiful in the way that I described this, for example, when I was a child growing up, and others would communicate to me and say, "You're very impulsive." Okay? Well, yeah, because there's so many different things that you can do, because you're on fire, to experience everything that is possible to experience, which is the electrical potential of creation mechanics. What do you want to do next? I'm on fire. Let's go have some fun. So the next thing you know is I'm sitting down there having performed one job, okay, delivering documents to courthouses to get paid $1 a mile for doing it. And that's in Southern California. And the next thing you know, the next day, I'm up visiting friends in Santa Rosa above San Francisco. And thinking about even to go do that, about what it would feel like to experience that, is what we call snap the fingers and turn on a dime. Wow. You went from one place to another place and decided that's where you wanted to be, just like that. Wow. Could they have predicted that? We used to call that, as children, turning on a dime. Turn the fire up. Stoke the furnace. Right? Increase the power. And that's called a power index, which is an exponent. Accelerate the accretion levels. Now you're a buzzsaw. Right? Moving through time space between Southern California and Northern California. Hey, now I'm here. Yeah. And so now when you're into libraries, and I've done this exercise before, that if you really want to experience what it's like to be me, then let's see if I can do this. Pull up my record, put it on a CDT plate, right? Now you can run that CDT plate. Now you get to experience everything that I experienced. How long is it going to take you to do that? Now you know who I am, because now you're experiencing what I am, which is what love is, which is what the record reflects as a cell reflector, as a magnetic recorder, as a magnetic light bulb, a sun, a star. The sound buffering speed. And so I try and keep it simple, 0 degrees, right at the center point of a magnet. So imagine the first magnet, the first spirit, the first spiral, the first sun that's always on. That means that light is always on. It's never off. So they're all experiencing what love is. And that's basic physics codes. The programming, the base 12 math programming. So that we're all experiencing breathing love. So the tempo, like in temporary space, the tempo, the breathing tempo, the breathing tempo, the breathing tempo, the temperature, the biovoltage regulators, regulating the speed, the variable speeds, the frequency modulation spheres. It naturally happens, which means you don't have to think about the mathematics. Otherwise, we just slowed ourselves down, because that's called a time delay to have to think about it. Which means it naturally works the way it was intended to work, as it was naturally intended as a spiral to experience no work. You don't have to think about it. You experience it naturally, which is a natural spiral, which means it's natural to experience being loved. So you're experiencing the first lover. And so I translated this when I thought about being a male and a female. See, so we have the seed and what I call the flower bed. The love is going to grow that flower, right? And why the NSA named me, hacked into my email account, called me Rose, Pink Rosetta, Sophia, the Emerald, right? The Emerald, Ireland, how this is all coded when you go look at the MCO Freedom Teaching Workshops, right? Particularly Rose Tobin and the girl that I've met recently that's up in Ireland. The Emerald Enchanted Forests, the Emerald Guardian Missions. It all comes full circle, doesn't it? And about when I was a child growing up, because I'm in a male vehicle, right? So I'm representing the seed side. Okay, so now you have the female mitochondria side, what I call the flower bed, the fertilization treatment, P4, phosphorus, ammonium phosphorus, just like the Forest Service uses to grow plants. When a fire has come through an area, remember they're in the business of harvesting. So they use that as a fertilizer so that after all that stuff is burned, things are going to grow back pretty quick because of the water table. the water columns, the aquifers, how aquifers operate as water columns, water tables, water pressure, and how that relates to density altitude. Burn a gas, a tetrahedron, between 3 and 4, right? 12. Now we're back to 3. Gated Ys. 4 gated Ys. 12 spheres. So the math is actually really simple. Simple is as simple does, because love is what love does. Born of fire. And that's the purity of that fire, which is the purity of that light, which is the firewall, which is the shield, which is what love is, which is the highest state of awareness when you're experiencing pure, eternal, absolute love. That means that the antenna, my antenna, is picking up on everything that's going on because I'm getting the transmission fluid, the electrical, dynamically linked cellular recordings of cells communicating to other cells, like tree cells, the cells in the trees, the cells in the plants, the musical trees, the musical spheres, the spirit in the cells. It's on fire to play music. That means we're all tuned in with each other, and we're playing with the first musician, which is perfect balance, to experience 0, pH 0, 0 ohms. What do you want to experience next? Whatever it is going to be what love is. That's what a firewall is, and that's what protects us, because that's what a shield is. That's why we're here. Have a beautiful day. We love you all. Be good to ourselves. The inner Eartha, the inner child, the innocence of awareness.